Hi, this is Numeric Citizen. In today's video, how to use the parameter with Graph to organize your content. So let's first talk about the parameter itself. It was created by Diego Forte and is a very popular method to organize content in any application. Para stands for project, areas, resources, and archive. Those are 4 areas or 4 ways to organize your content depending of the goal and depending of the content itself. So the parameter has been created to help you organize yourself when working on projects and storing notes inside an application or even inside a system, a file system on your machine. And so for that, it's a great way to use, and I think it's a great way to use with Craft. I did myself use it for quite a while. It's not exactly how it doesn't I would say transpose itself exactly with the strict definition of the parameter, but it's a good I took a lot of inspiration from that. So to show you how you can organize yourself, your content, your notes in Craft, I'm going to explain the 4 axes for organizing your content. So I'll go for each of those with a simple definition and give you a few examples on how to organize your content with those 4 axes of content organization. Many of the notes that you are storing or writing in Craft are related to projects, and projects is the first part of the para method. And so a project is something that you are working on. There is a start and there's a finish and there's an end result. And so this is the main area where you will store your notes for specific projects, and also that you will maybe create some tasks that you want to achieve or execute for this specific project. And so this is the first portion of the 4 axes to organize your notes with the parameter. Some examples of projects are, if you are a blogger like me, you will sometimes write blog posts. It can be a semester project if you are at school. It can be also a project at work where you want to organize your notes around that. It can be anything, again, that has pretty much a start and a finish and an end results that you are aiming for. Now, the first A in the parameter stands for areas, and areas are some things that you want to document that you don't actually have a start and a finish. So those areas are things that are of interest to you. So if you want to document things or store notes about a specific subjects, like if you are interested in music or in weather or climate change or things like that, and you want to kind of organize those notes inside a specific organization system for those notes, you'll store those notes in areas. And so this is where areas are playing their role in this methodology. Now, resources are the things that you are finding on the web. For example, you are reading an article that you want to save for later reference. Then this is something that you would save in resources. Let's say you will find some interesting images of a place that you want to visit. This is, or maybe something that you want to document, and you're not sure exactly when you will reuse those assets. Then this is where into resources that you would save those images. So think of this place like information that you will maybe act upon that later in the future. So that's the thing that you are going to save into resources. Example like quotes, also references, bookmarks, and stuff like that. So it's a very, it can be very massive depending on how you are gathering information. It can be a temporary place as you are saving things into resources and that you plan to use later, but in the short term. I'll explain a different tweak to this for that to organize those information that you are going to use in the short term. So that's very important place in this methodology. And when you are using Craft for storing those notes, it's a great way to maybe link those information from the resources and into actual areas or even projects. So I'll talk about that later. Now, archives, as the name implies, is a place to move things in a specific area or a folder, for example, that you no longer use or that you don't plan to use in the near future, for example, and you want to maybe do some cleanup in your notes. So this is where you would archive either projects or areas that you are no longer, which are no longer one of your interests. So this is really important because it is the final thing that will help you organize your content, even though over time the information tends to be less useful, but you want to keep that for future references, for example, then you can have this the archive place to put those information tidbits in there. So that's the fourth and the last axes to organize your notes in the para method. Now that you have the basic concepts and the definition of the 4 letters of the para methodology, by the way, I'll put a reference to the definition and the resources regarding this methodology in the video description. So now that you have all the pieces in place, let's see how it goes in Craft. So for this demonstration purposes, what I did set up is a bunch of folders. The first one that I'm going to talk about is project itself. So if I go in this view here in the organize view using this layout, so those are the 4 folders, the projects, the areas, resources, and archives. So it's basically the construct that I'm going to use to implement the para methodology with Craft is to use folders. Inside of folders like projects, if you go there, you can give a description of the why this folder exists. And so this is a definition that comes from the para methodology website. And then you have a few documents inside this folder, and you can also have other folders inside the projects if you want to have a more refined way of organizing your notes. And so using the pin document feature of Craft, you can put the more important document inside this folder at the top here. Also, since the projects are not only a bunch of notes that are kind of stored together, you will be actually doing some stuff, some work inside those projects. And so for that, you might use the tasks of Craft, and you can also use the tasks view here, where you can pin one project, for example, into this area there, and you can have a focus on a few tasks that you want to accomplish in the short term, for example. So this is a nice way to use the task feature of Craft to do this, to manage those activities related to projects. Again, projects are probably the one place where you will be using the tasks management in Craft the most, because the other areas or the other folders are more for references or gathering information into specific way. So that's for the projects. Now for the areas, it can be a document for a very specific interest, or you can have a bunch of documents to support gathering those notes into different documents. And if you want to organize further those notes, which are different documents, then you can create other folders inside if you want. into this areas folder. By the way, I'm using a numbering scheme here, very simple, because I want to make sure that I have a better way to list those folders when I'm using Craft. The third folder is resources. Again, this is a place where you are going to save a lot of information. Those information can be stored inside documents or inside pages, inside documents. So it's really up to you how you want to organize and take advantage of the Craft very specific nature to store and manage those resources. So I tend to keep that as simple as possible because it makes it easier to find information later, especially in the resources folder. And the fourth is the actual archive folder, where you will put some resources that you no longer need, or projects that are completed, or content that you simply decided to archive because you don't use that anymore. Again, when I said earlier in the video that using Craft backlinks is essential in this methodology, because as you are working on projects, for example, if you have a big project here, this is a specific template that I have put together, and that is available on Gumroad, by the way. I'll share the link in the video description. So when you are working on very big projects and you want to reference resources, then you can use the backlink feature, where you will establish a link between a specific portion of this document to the resource that you are establishing a link to. So it's very important to consider being very familiar with backlinks, because really it's one of the pillar way to organize your content. Not only having those stored in folders, but establishing relationship between all those nodes inside your Craft environment. And it's pretty much how I would implement the para methodology inside Craft. But I would add this thing here, the inbox, which is not part of the initial para organization structure. But the reason I'm using a specific folder for that is that you can create a document which is the inbox. And when you are like surfing the web, or you want to save a link, you can then use the share sheet on your device to store documents or information tidbits into this folder. And then later, you will be able to move that information in the right place, either in projects, areas, resources. And so that's pretty much how you would implement the para methodology. It's pretty much simple. As soon as you understand all the why those folders exist, then this is very simple to implement. Now, the question that you might have is if I am using the para methodology myself to organize my content in Craft. And the answer is mostly yes, but it's in a different flavor, I would say. What you're seeing right now is my actual content in Craft. So there's a bunch of folders here at the top level, folders on the left sidebar. If I focus on this portion here, not the tiles on the right, but the sidebar here on the left, you will see that I have a few things that are stored in specific folders. And because I want to have those information readily available, and because I access those pieces quite often, so this is why I will put that at the top of the list. So as you know, I'm the author of the Craft Bible, and so all the content related to this is stored in this folder. And so how is this folder comparing to the para methodology? Since most of the things there is worked or act upon on a continuous matter, it means that it's not really a project itself. It's more like an area of uh, some things that is like an interest for me to maintain and work on a continuous in a continuous manner. And so this specific folder would be considered as being part of an area in the para methodology. The newsletter is the same thing. I think it's more like a combination because I do have a newsletter that is called the Ephemeral Scrapbook newsletter. And so I produce a newsletter mostly on each week. And so for a specific newsletter, this could be seen as a project, but um, what I decided to do here is that I keep all my newsletter inside a few different folders, like by year. And this portion can be seen as either an area or I would say maybe archive, because I keep all those past newsletter in this folder. But I rarely refer to them when I'm doing the new edition of the newsletter. So as you can see, it's kind of a mix organization. The online folder is for storing some things, some documents that are published online. And so like my About page, which is built using Craft, I decided to use that in a specific folder. And if I consider the para methodology, I would say that this is a area type of folder. Learning projects, as the name implies, are actual projects because this is something that I started to do, that I'm going to do for a while, and then eventually I will stop doing that. And so those folders, or this folder here, is more like the projects folder in the para methodology. If I go on the Making Craft Better folder, it's more like an area, because this is something that is of interest for me. And so those folders, this folder store a few documents that I keep updating from time to time. Research and knowledge, it's more like, I would say, areas, things that I'm kind of keeping up to date depending of my projects or my interests, I would say. So again, this is more like an area. The Content Factory folder, this is a mix of projects and areas of interest. So as you can see, I decided to kind of use the para methodology, but to make it more flexible for me, because the way Craft is working for storing and managing content. So it's not a mandatory methodology to be very strict on how you store information, but knowing that a specific folder is more like a project folder or is more like an area or resources, it kind of help to look at your content and help you how to organize your content in Craft. Documented workflows is more like resources, because this is something that I have created and I keep that as a reference. So this folder would be more like a resources folder. Published content, it's all the content that I have published on my blog, website, or on YouTube, and it's organized in different subfolders, like the main site, which is newyorkcitizen.me. So I want to keep all that information in a very specific place, depending on the platform where the content is published. And so how is that relating to the para methodology? I would say it's more like archive, because I really refer to that information in those folders. The information in those folders is less actionable, because this is something that kind of relates to the past. So it's more like an archive type of folder. And the last two here, the retired content, is something that I used to publish in Craft, but I decided to stop publishing the content, the documents there. And so I want to keep the content, so it's more like a archive folder too, and it never published also is a kind of an archive folder. I could create super folders with the projects, areas, resources, and archive, and then store those folders here into these 4 super folders. But I want to keep that the most simple as possible. So this is why I keep having those folders, even though that I'm pretty much using the para methodology to store my content. So it gives you a pretty good idea of how I'm using or how I'm getting inspired by the para methodology to manage content in Craft. So I have a few takeaways. The first one is the use of folders and backlinks is very important in Craft to support this para methodology. The second one is that what I've shown you, it's a Craft space, so you can apply those principles that comes with the para methodology to any spaces in Craft. So it's really up to you how you want to organize. I wouldn't create a space for each axis, like projects or areas or resources. I would not create space for those individual axes. I would just have I would apply those principles to a specific space, like I've shown you in the video. Also, as you can see, I'm not using tags, even though tags are not yet supported or included in Craft. I don't feel the need to use any form of tagging system for that. Maybe later when tags comes to Craft, it will help. But in general, the para methodology doesn't rely on tags to organize content. It's very simple in that aspect. Also, this is the way I'm using the para methodology is very personal, so it's not very strictly adhering to the principles, but it is inspired by the methodology itself. And the last thing I want to talk about is very simple, is the data flow inside the organization of content. So as you are working with information to support activities, research activities, or what you're doing in your life, the flow of information tends to go from projects to areas, to resources, and to archives in general. Sometimes you will store information in resources, and eventually you will move those information into a very specific project. But in general, the flow of information tends to be from the projects to the archives. So that's pretty much what I have to say regarding Craft and the use of para methodology to organize your content. I hope that you like this video. I hope that you learn a few things along the way. And if you are not subscribing to my YouTube channel, it's time to do so you don't miss any upcoming videos. Thanks for watching, and see you guys for another one soon. Bye.